And Mackie live from the Sydney studios in Australia. And thank you, Nighthawk, for that awesome intro. That music makes me feel groovy. If you didn't know it, Revolution Radio has a chat room, and we're in there right now. That's right, it's live. And you can be too. Simply go to freedomslips.com, freedomslips, one word, and you can chat and listen from there. There's actually a live feed to the station. You can check out our website, shinysideout.net. Once again, one word, shinysideout.net. For more info, and also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I think we've got 2 Facebook accounts, guys. There are heaps of ways to listen to this station. If you live in Kentucky, you can tune into WZZR 101.3 FM, 101.3 FM. If you're anywhere else in the entire world via one of these apps, there's Revolution Radio, TalkStream Live, TuneIn.com, Radio Tuner, Speaker.com, iHeart, Live 365, and our very own Shiny Side Out app. That's right, Dave made that. At home, you can listen on a Grace tabletop digital radio or driving around in a GM motor vehicle with the receiver-enabled radio. These are all revolutions in radio, and they are. You used to have radio. You don't have to have radio anymore. You can have all kinds of devices. And we are pleased to let you know as well that the station has introduced dedicated dial-to-listen numbers. They're available 24/7 with immediate effect. And this is only for the States, guys. The numbers are as follows. For Studio A, it's 712-432-6958. Once again, 712-432-6958. And Studio B, 716-748-0112. Once again, 716-748-0112. If you want a CD of our last year's shows or other hosts' shows, check the station's website for details. Okay, it'd be great if you wanted to buy some of ours. The number to call in, if you're in the United States of America, is 347-688-2902, 347-688-2902. Or if you have Skype, simply add Freedom Screen. One word. Awesome show, yet again preceding us, yes?
Yes!
Yes!
Yes, it was!
Brilliant.
This
It
is
was.
Captain Hero!
We're going to get sued for this one. Okay, so...
No, it's my impersonation of a generic character.
I love it. I love it. There used to be, the Sesame Street characters, Ernie and Bert?
Yes.
Right. In Germany, they had a bit of a parody of that, right? They dressed them in SMM gear. Okay,
Of course!
and I kid
Of
you not,
course, only in Germany.
only in Germany, right? And they still called them Ernie and Bert. So Sesame Street got wind of it and said, hey, you can't do this, we're going to sue you. So they called them Unknown A and Unknown B.
That's
So,
hilarious.
it is, rather. So if you've got nothing to do, go to YouTube and look for Ernie and Bert in SMN gear. That's maybe something you shouldn't do. I don't know.
Just remember,
Having said that-
just remember, kids. Remember, kids. That's something you don't want to ask your parents about. All right.
No. Yeah, look, awesome.
On that note-
awesome, interesting week. How has your week been, sir?
It's pretty good. Personally, I had a good week. We had a day that was 14 degrees Celsius above the average. I noticed that was on Friday. And they said it only hit 38, but that's not the way that it felt. So
Oh, no.
It felt much hotter, and in the west it hit 40 something.
Yeah.
The G20 is on in Brisbane, and there's a whole bunch of, political happenings around that. Our Prime Minister, I held my head in shame as he spoke yet again, embarrassing our nation. And while everyone else is bringing up interesting stories that would, interest the other parties there in this international group of, it's actually 19 countries plus a representative. Those 19 countries couldn't care less whether our people decided to pay $7 to go see a doctor or not. That was a lead balloon. Sorry,
Yeah.
Tony.
Yeah.
He's.
You know what I found amazing?
I'll put my head in my hands.
He threatened. What's his name? Putin. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Shirt fronting.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Shirt fronting. Yeah, that's right. The guy with more nukes than a
Anyone.
porcupine has spikes, and
Maybe more nukes than God. I don't know.
And what do we have, Mickey? We have the planes we haven't bought yet.
We don't even have a navy anymore. Do you know that?
Yes, I knew that.
We have a couple of tugboats.
And there's a dinghy. And there's a guy from the Central Coast with a tinny. That's an aluminium hulled single engine little boat that you can just go fishing in.
I used to work with a guy that ran aground the Adelaide twice. I kid you not. Adelaide is a warship in Australia.
Yeah, well,
I think it's not decommissioned now, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Is that the one they sank off the coast here?
Well, after running aground twice, I think you have to, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much that's the way it goes. We used to have a whole bunch of really cool submarines, and I'm sure we still have them. But the new submarines that they wanted to purchase them from which country? China. They want to outsource the submarines from which could possibly be a future enemy of ours, and I just think that's extraordinary. Because they'll have a little thing. It's like, yeah, cool. I'm just going to push the button. And your submarine goes offline.
Yeah.
Oops. Look, it ran out of warranty yesterday. Sorry, too many jokes. So the G20, I wanted to bring this up, Meki, because this is really important. The G20, it brought to our shores something that hasn't been here before, and that are Russian cruise ships. Not the pleasant ones that you have an entertainment director and everyone eats from two different sittings in the at the mess hall. No, one that fires weapons at you. So I put together a news story. I'm just going to show our people, Meki. They've got a little shot of it. So from our blog, and look, this is beachgoers at the beach could see firstly the Russian ships and then the Australian HMS, I forget what it was, shadowing them as they went backwards and forwards. Now, I recognise that Russia's leader would have to be able to be exited quickly, and this is his Air Force One. Hop on board a ship and you're good to go, right? Whatever, or a sub, whatever. I'm sure he'd be good with that, and I'm not going to put him down for having that there. And I don't know whether they came into Australian waters. They were certainly right on the border of, it's only a couple of k's out. But I have to say, Meki, what it brought up was I wanted to see how often Russian vessels or aircraft or jets or whatever you want to have incurred, have had incursions in other people's space. So I started looking at it, and I was actually really surprised. So, in the since the beginning of the year, this is 2014 only, 100 Russian jet fighter airspace incursions have occurred. 100.
Only 100.
Yeah, well, it's surprising, which is 3 times the previous year's total, 3 times more. So that's a lot.
It is, sir.
It is. But this year, there's also Russian subs and ships, and there's also helicopters and all sorts of things doing the same thing. Also, they did a missile firing from the Baltic Sea of a brand new ballistic missile, and that went over the land of another country. And they didn't tell anyone they were going to do it, and it was film of it and everything.
No, well, it's a surprise if you tell people. You're a crazy talker now.
Yeah, crazy.
You're crazy.
I'm crazy. So I wanted to put forward these 3 questions. I've got: are they looking for gaps in radar, given the amount of incursions in all the airspace and what they're doing? Are they testing the response times? So from if it is a gap in radar, from when they are detected, are they testing how quickly they can get fighters out to meet them? Right? Because this would be a strategic thing, wouldn't it? I reckon creating a strategy involving these weaknesses.
But see, what you're proposing here, Dave, and I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily, but what you're proposing is that we're looking at a potential conventional war coming our way, right? So we have got Russia probing, potentially, the defense systems of other countries.
That's right.
Because we know that nuclear war is going to get us exactly nowhere, right? Einstein said, if we have a World War III, and he was assuming we would fight it with nuclear weapons or whatever weapons we have at the time, whatever's most advanced, then the war after that, World War IV, would be fought with sticks and stones. So,
there'd be nothing left, yeah. And remember that's coined by the phrase MAD. It would be MAD, which is mutually assured destruction.
That's right. We lived under that, Dave and I, believe it or not. When I was a child in school, we learned to take cover from nuclear attacks under our school desks because that's safe.
That's going to help you.
it was a real thing. I'll tell you that though.
Do you know
It was scary.
by at least doing the duck and cover, you're going to save the immediate blindness that may occur. You might be shadowed from something. There is some method in the madness, right? And I have to say, clearly, Russia has stepped up its global military presence by flying its bombers with refueling planes in groups of 8, mind you, by not using transponders, by not responding to civil aircraft controllers' contact requests, and by not lodging flight plans. They are plain and simply not following the peacetime rules. Because these are rules. They're rules. It can only be seen as though they are not playing according to international guidelines, and therefore it is an aggressive move on their part. I mean, I say this strongly because they seem to be defying these rules with a catch me if you can attitude, which is the probing of the radar. Remember, they've got 7 bombers and a refueling plane, right? As well as jets and everything that's going on. Recently, footage of the Russian tanks being subsequent discussions from the to be the reason he is leaving early. He's getting out of there, Mickey.
Sir.
Did you know that?
I did not. Now I do.
No. He's decided to leave.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, I don't like all that talk. You're asking me questions. What questions?
Yes. Stop with those questions. They're probably stairs too.
I do not
Now
like
go away.
questions. Russian warships off the Australian coast near Brisbane are so close that they could be seen by swimmers at the beaches.
But let's be clear, sorry guys. This is actually not an illegal action. As long as they remain out of the territorial waters, international waters, they can do that all day long, right? So this is not an illegal or some kind of aggressive act necessarily. Anybody can move their ship wherever they like. I mean, the Americans do it enough. But it's certainly the first time that was done. I mean, it's like a guy comes into your country and brings like a fleet with him. Yeah, you're not going to screw with me now, are you?
That's right. I know. So Putin has been called upon. He's been called upon for his want to bring back to power the Soviet Union. And we know that China is now an ally of theirs, which makes this a dangerous partnership for the world. I just don't want people to ignore it. And I think this is me thinking, I think this stance that Russia has taken could lead to a mishap and possibly begin a new World War III. Through
Possible.
mishap, Meki.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it is definitely a possibility. Of course, we're hoping that's not the case. Having said that, though, I mean, it's interesting how Dave just phrased that. It's dangerous for the world. Well, I tell you what. The thing is, we grew up in a Western kind of dominated world, Dave.
That's right.
Both Dave and I.
Yeah.
Me in Germany, here in Australia. So. I'll be honest with you, I mean, I don't really care which empire rules. I prefer no empire to rule me, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which empire rules you, right? So right now, it's the American empire that has to say, but before that, there was the British Empire, and before that was the Roman and, Spanish. But there was different empires at all times, and it's just a shift of power that we're seeing now that is natural. America has bankrupted itself, its own fault. It stretched itself too thin across the globe. It has bankrupted its economy. By being corporate fascists. Good luck to you. Whereas China, while it is an autocracy and certainly, well, you can't really call them communists anymore, but they're certainly are autocratic and determining what everybody does in that fashion. But it seems to work, and they seem to be having they have an economy that is still growing in not quite double digits anymore, but still strong enough. And Russia is now coming back again under Putin. And believe it or not, the Russians love him. Of course, they love him because he's making Russians feel powerful again, or relevant in the world stage.
He's making them feel wanted, united, the whole thing that everyone wants.
Yeah.
You want to be part of something. And despite that being through some considerable pressure in the Ukraine's position,
That's right.
just remember this. As we know, NATO has 1,000 troops ready as a spearhead force backed by NATO countries to stop Russian a rollover. So as a blitzkrieg kind of thing, they're going to go in. Then, if we know this to be true, because it is true, then why is the aggressive stance in the Ukraine that Russia is denying being reported by the media now as not being stopped by NATO? I watched this weekend, Mickey, I watched so far, rows and rows of military vehicles containing tanks on the back of them, rolling into eastern Ukraine, and I can't believe. Well, what's this NATO spearhead force for if it's not to stop that?
Well, yeah, look,
they haven't
it's
shot
possible.
anybody yet. It's just driving around. They're going for a cruise, huh?
Well, see, the thing is, as soon as you take action, let's say you do take action, right? Something happens. There will be repercussions. There's going to be a consequence to that particular action, and right now, I don't know if people are willing to do that quite yet. Let's roll the clock back 60 years, almost 70, to World War II, right? Or just before World War II in the 1930s in Europe. Hitler was doing a whole bunch of stuff. He was pushing. He was bringing back Sudetenland from the Czech into the Reich. Yeah, welcome back. And nobody stopped him, right?
That's right.
That's it. Whereas, in fact, Putin is doing something very similar. And you have to remember that Russia, the Soviet Union, was a very large empire, if you will, consisting of a whole bunch of different Slavic and other nations, Baltic as well. And then they broke away after the Soviet Union collapsed, and now Putin, you could argue, is bringing them back into the fold. And don't forget, in Ukraine, you've got a very large Russian minority. Right, it's the same argument Hitler made for Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. It's the same argument he made for Austria. It's the same argument he made when he took back the right side of the Rhine. Right? He militarized it again. Okay. Now this is a repeat. I'm not saying Putin is Hitler. What I'm saying to you is we're seeing appeasement yet again. People are not willing to confront Putin. And if you don't, right, and I'm talking from the West's point of view here now, from America and European point of view, if you do not confront him at this point, he will just keep going. And it can escalate, or it could escalate potentially into a much hotter conflict in the future.
Well, he's right. You're right, Mickey. What he's doing at the moment is perpetuating his strength by not being opposed. And, and what I have to say, this is the if you didn't hear the beginning of it, I did miss out telling you where those airspace incursions had occurred. Remember, these planes don't have transponders. They're not talking to civil aviation. But there's thousands of planes flying around, and yet these guys are doing it anonymously and causing the country that they're closest to launch their jets. These are NATO countries. He's forcing their hand. Now, okay, the bombers, refueling aircraft, subs and ships have caused scrambling of NATO planes to intercept in the following countries. And I just want you to remember there what they are. Sweden, Norway, Germany, Britain, the USA, because they did off the east coast or the west coast USA, in the Baltic Sea. In Australia, we've got ships now shadowing the Russian ships to make sure they're doing the right thing. Denmark, Estonia, Lithuania, Finland, and Latvia. That's a lot of places. He's probing, all right. He is probing their military. He's probing the radar, the length, the distance from the radar, their response times, and I think all good chess players have 100 moves in advance. They know from the first move what the last move is going to be. And I think that I'm taking him to be a smart man, and I think he would be developing strategies to be able to, if this was the case, I'm not saying it is, to be able to have a unified strike on all of those territories rather than using intercontinental ballistic missiles, Meki. More like just bombs delivered by his bombers, which have a higher degree of contact with target, because they're not the anti-missile systems won't work on those. They're just not guided bombs. They're just going to fall down. So I think that's really what we're looking at here. And I have to say, my hands are in the air. I don't know. If anyone else has any more information on that, please email me via the website. It'd be great. Thanks for the time, Meki, on
No. This is important stuff. Look, the reason we're doing this, guys, of course, is to keep up to date with current affairs. I mean, we do have we've got a show theme, we've got a topic, we've got an arc, a show arc, which brings you the big story, which we revealed to you to some extent in show number 100. We're going to update our theories on that as well. Going forward, show 150, we'll have another cycle back on that. All right, so we will once again have an overview of all the theories we've shared with you and our overriding theory, which might be explaining everything potentially, right? So that's going to be show number 150. Don't know yet, Dave, whether or not we're going to have 2 hours or 4 hours, but 150 is another big milestone. It's not that far away. It's only eight shows to go.
That's still. I'm going to press you on air and say one day we have to do it in the same studio.
I agree with you. Now that could actually be easier for me to accomplish this time around, because that would be in the new year, wouldn't it? Gen time frame. Now I shouldn't have too much work on, so I should be able to make the trek to where Dave lives.
Next summer. Okay,
no, but you had some.
I might actually be just myself away from home after Christmas. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm looking into what will happen. I might have to do a surprise visit somewhere, so I'll let you know.
Yes, that sounds by the way, there is a talk in Sydney next week, which we may go to. I haven't got tickets yet, but Carrie Cassidy, yes, I believe, will be speaking in Sydney. Yep. So that's pretty cool. So Dave and I will probably be there. If you're there as well, if you're listening in Sydney or elsewhere, if you can make your way there, it'll be pretty cool. And Dave and I are also planning a couple of expeditions. You know, one specifically, which I really want to do, because I think it's very strange place. You know, the Black Rocks.
I do.
So that's a really very strange place. It's very incongruous. There's no reason for these rocks to be there. There's no geological feature that would have spewed them up, if you will.
You're talking about Black Hill, aren't you, Mickey?
Black Hill, sir, that's correct. Aborigines steer clear of it. People have gone missing there, apparently. No, we don't intend to go missing.
Cattle have gone missing as well.
So we're going to have I'm going to use the latest technology. I'm going to use a red piece of yarn, which I will tie around my ankle, and Dave will have the other end of the yarn. And
very
if there's
yarn,
tugging,
by the way, very thin,
very thin and brittle. No, we'll hopefully have some footage as well. So that should be pretty cool. Now, is there any further news we need to share with our listeners, sir?
No, I think we're good to go. How about yourself?
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, look, I didn't want to go into Ebola this week.
It's gone back up again to 5,100.
Yeah, I know. So, but as I said earlier, and we've shared this with you guys, this is officially the WHO, like World Health Organization, has been saying, and other sources as well, that we're probably under-reporting it by a factor of 3. So rather than having 5,000 dead, there could be 15,000, and rather than having 15,000 infected, we may have 45,000 already. And they also said we could be hitting 1.2 million by January. And I have not seen anything that says, we have stopped it in its tracks. So I think we still have to worry. But suffice it to say that that's all I want to say about that. We do want to go to today's show's topic, which is in fact questions. Last week we started on this. We shared with you why we do this. I mean, why do Dave and Mackie spend their Sundays talking to a whole bunch of people on the internet about a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't seem to matter to anyone? Well, it should matter. And we are very far away from having all the questions answered. We are very far away from having all the mysteries solved. We're very far away from, in fact, having to stop to learn new things. Right? We should always question people that are dogmatic and immovable in their convictions. Okay, and that's the surefire way to get brain calcification. Okay, something we need to avoid is brain calcification. Hence, we need to ask the questions, and the questions we're bringing you and brought you last week are mainstream questions. Okay, they're questions that haven't been answered, and nobody's disputing that. In fact, this is not conspiracy theory. This is not tinfoil hat. This is just stuff we don't know about, and you may think that we know it, right? And that's fair enough, because you think, no one's really asking me to think about it, so we ask you to think about it. These things have not been solved. We shared a whole bunch of that stuff with you, last week. Dark matter, gravity, why do we sleep? Pain, lithium, blah blah blah. And Dave, let's jump right into other things that we haven't got a good explanation for quite yet.
Yeah, awesome. Look, the first one off the list, and Mickey and I are going to alternate through this one, and that is plate tectonics. How does it work? It might sound surprising with the theory of continental plates moving around, rearranging continents, and causing earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and even forming mountains, has only received widespread support relatively recently, though it was first postulated back in 1500, or around about 1500 it was, that the continents may have once fit together. It's not really a stretch for anyone who has looked up a map. In fact, kids, that's what kids first ask, isn't it, Meki, at school?
Yep.
I know. I said, look, they could sort of go together. Don't be silly, I was told. And only for it to be the truth. The idea didn't gain a lot of traction until the 1960s, when the hypothesis that the sea floor spreading, and that was between the continental South America and Africa, where rocks are pulled into the mantle of the Earth. Seafloor spreading is when they're pushed out, recycled, and brought back to the surface as magma. It was backed up by physical evidence. However, scientists aren't entirely sure on what drives this movement, or exactly how plate boundaries were created in the first place. My belief is there was a gigantic impact. I mean, super gigantic impact that split it all, and then, there was the, what's it called? Convex motion. Convex motion in the magma in hot and cold regions that started to do it. Okay, so there are many theories, but none of them completely address all the aspects of this activity.
And just to be, we actually had a show on this, believe it or not. I don't know if it's lost, one of the lost shows. If it is, we'll do it again. But the two competing theories with that particular theory. One competing theory, which was actually supported by Edmund Halley of Halley's Comet fame. Yes, cool. The comet that comes back every 76 years. You might have heard of him. He believed that the Earth was hollow, and in fact, inside were shells that moved against each other. For him, it was the only explanation for magnetism. He couldn't imagine how else the Earth would be magnetic. Why we have magnetism? It doesn't make any sense. Why is it polar, right? So he had this concentric circle kind of idea, and not really plate tectonics at all. The other theory, of course, is Earth expansion. And you believe it or not, it's not as crazy as it sounds, because you could argue that, the Earth is expanding, and the reason that the continents are now in the place they are is because the Earth has grown bigger, right? So pushing, therefore, the continents further apart. And I'm not a proponent of any particular theory, just something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I think there was a huge impact. That's my belief, and that since they were all probably joined in as one island at one point called Pangaea, what was on the other side? Whatever was on the other side was devastated by an impact, and we've all floated around to unify the surface of the Earth again. That's my point of view.
It's possible that, in fact, the impact happened in the Pacific, which is like an unusually large mass of water, which is also quite deep. So compared to the Atlantic, of course. Okay, now, hey guys, what is dark energy? What is dark energy? Of all the great mysteries of science, okay, dark energy is probably the most enigmatic. Dark matter is estimated at about 80% of all mass. That's dark matter, right? However, dark energy is a hypothetical form of energy believed to make up around 70% of all content in the universe. Okay, dark energy has been implicated as the cause for the expansion of the universe, although there still a considerable amount of mystery regarding its supposed properties. First and foremost, what is it made of? Is dark energy constant, or is it fluctuating? Right, in some kind of subspace, maybe. Why does dark energy's density appear to match the density of regular matter? In fact. Right? Can dark energy be reconciled with Einstein's theory of gravity, or even quantum mechanics? Okay, or do we have to look at that theory yet again? Right? Again, these are things that scientists put out there to make their models work. Right? Dark energy, dark matter. Right? All the things that we seem to just throw out there. Think that's another nice graphic there. You can see the universe in a cube. So this is the question, right? So we just don't know. We just dark energy there. There's dark matter. Yeah, sure. That's so. This hypothetical stuff is meant to make up 70% of all the content in the universe, and yet we haven't quite seen it yet.
No, that's absolutely true. We haven't seen it. And what's really bizarre, I have to say about it, is if you kept doing the same equation over and over and over again, and it was the same level of error, you would do what Einstein did: go crazy and attempt to try and fix it by making that a constant.
Yes, sir.
All right. So if you're looking out into space and you think there should be a whole bunch more matter in there, for some reason you think that, then you'll create it. And so I would have to say, if people who think there's dark matter and the Big Bang would have to also assume that there would be no matter left if it all joined back together again, because it would annihilate itself and they'd be left with none. If it was 70%, you'd only have 30% of the matter left next time the universe went bang again. And I think that's missing from the equation. And I don't think it's sort of like UFOs and Bigfoot. The people don't have a foot in both camps, and I think they really need to look at it. Continental drift. What a segue. Continental drift. The theory of continental drift was first proposed in 1500 and stated that the continents seemed to drift relative to each other across the ocean. Later on, it was refined into the theory of plate tectonics, as we've previously stated, which purposes that there are tectonic plates on the ocean floor that slowly move, separating the continents and creating the oceans over time. As you can see, I've actually got a diagram up there at the moment showing the direction of movement of the plates, which lends itself to understanding how I'm drawing a line with my mouse, Meki, for those on the radio only, between along the mid-ocean ridge, which is the creation point separating South America and Africa. And they did that through core testing to discover the age of that was much younger than, and as they got away from it towards the continent, they found that the age of the material got older and older and older until they hit a point where they could see where that was the original break. So, and then it got immediately old. Okay, so this is basically what it's all about. But once again, in some cases, Meki, they say that it takes millions and millions of years. We're talking about 10 centimeters per year movement from a transform fault, for instance, up the Californian coast. Or in New Zealand, if you happen to live north and south, you'll discover there's a green line which separates the two plates from each other. And the North Island is going north on the South Island, if you know what I'm saying. They're separated.
Yes, sir.
All right. So this has been spoken about in millennia, talking about millions of years. Geologic time is nothing but like a flash or a blink of the eye to the movement of the continents. However, it's been shown that in some cases it's moved rather fast and then suddenly slowed down again. And this is consistent with something like the creation of the canyon. What's it called in America? Not great. The Grand Canyon. So the Grand Canyon looked like it was a single ice melt over about a week. Cut it out. That's what it did. A single ice melt from a 2-mile high ice sheet suddenly gave way. Those things look like they've been there for millions of years, but it looks like that some of these things have occurred really quickly. And some, imagine if you were at the breaking point between South America and Africa, instant, Meki, we're having a game of chess, suddenly the chessboard collapses down, a split starts to divide between you and I. Do you jump over, oh, it's too late now, and we wave each other goodbye. On one side, you're drifting away from me. There's bubbling up magma coming up through the gap. That sort of happened all of a sudden. And that's the way they're describing some of this. It doesn't slowly split over a million years and then suddenly, you notice it's lower than sea level. No, it doesn't happen. And the other thing, Meki, is that if you have a magnetic pole shift, what does that do? And can the actual Earth itself move on its axis? And when it does, you get a stretching of the equatorial region on the Earth and a compressing of what used to be there, causing more and different kind of plate tectonics. So all of this is very, very interesting. I just love the whole topic. So,
well, Charles Hapgood actually proposed that the mantle of the Earth might move like the peel of an orange. Like if you imagine the peel of an orange becoming loose from the orange itself, it could move over the orange itself, right? So therefore therefore it would explain the sudden pole reversals, and the masses, the thousands, if not millions of animals that are frozen or snap frozen in Siberia, for instance.
Oh, and the Andes Mountains too.
Yep, that's right.
It's suddenly glaciated for some reason they couldn't explain, and the salt water. So, look, some have suggested that due to the unexplained nature of the workings behind the theory of plate tectonics and continental drift, and evidence against it, that the continents may have actually been separated much more quickly than many millions of years, and by a catastrophic event such as a flood, or the Earth changing its on its axis. Those things are more likely to have had effect. I just love that. It's a great question. Still, once again, Mekki, we don't know.
No, we don't know. Having said that, we are proponents of the catastrophism theories.
Yep.
Well, now at the moment, science takes the steady state approach. Steady state meaning things change very gradually over long periods of time. Nothing changes. We know all of the background effects. We understand all the conditions. They don't change. It just takes a lot of time. We have a lot of evidence, though, I believe, for the catastrophic change of our world in the past. Okay, there's no the Toba explosion or volcanic eruption is just one of them. In fact, this is a nice segue into the next topic, which is the extinction of the megafauna. This is only one extinction event that we can trace back through our time. I mean, it was the dinosaurs is the most famous one, but even predating that, we had the massive. And I think it's a Cambrian, but I could be wrong, extinction period where almost, I think 98 or 99% of all species went extinct. 98 to 99% of all species on the planet. Now, the extinction of the megafauna here, is specifically of interest to us because it happened while human beings were around. Okay, the woolly mammoth, okay, the saber-toothed tiger, the mastodon, okay, the giant sloth. These were even the giant marsupials, like the giant kangaroo. They all died out, okay, tens of thousands of years ago. And scientists have been unable to explain why that happened. Why did these animals go extinct? Okay, two main answers have been suggested as the cause. One, our fault, overhunting. So the human beings have
we ate them
simply
all.
We ate them all. Now, not necessarily a crazy idea, but you need numbers for that. And I don't know if we existed at that point in numbers high enough to actually make an ecological impact of that nature. Okay, and the second one is climate change. Yet again, climate change. Those that say it is climate change often have very little evidence. Besides claiming that there's not enough evidence for the other theories. So therefore,
it was mine.
So you can't prove yours, so you got to believe mine. As for the overhunting explanation. Many scientists say that if that were true, even if that were true, there would be very little archaeological evidence for it, and that's true. I mean, we have very little memory of even the last 10,000 years. We can only really say with some certainty what happened in the last 5,000, okay, and even then we're stretching it. But go back 10, 20, 30, 45, 50, 60, 100,000 years, we have no clue. Not really, right? There's no written records that we know of. Okay, now. The mystery remains unsolved. Okay, it is still a question that hasn't been answered, and it may even be something else entirely. I once wrote a little short story, science fiction short story, where aliens came to planet Earth and harvested it for junk grub, trademarked. The preferred fast food in the eastern spiral of the galaxy. They simply turned it all into burger meat. But just my little theory and idea there. So we have no idea what happened. In fact, all of the extinction events are mysterious to us. All we know for a fact is that they happened, and they are likely to happen again.
I like it. Mekki, the great floods are also a reason for it. It could be that enough particulates through a massive impact which caused, like somewhere that was innocuous, for instance, like Antarctic, but whose impact was enough to force all the volcanoes on the planet to pop simultaneously, causing a quick winterization of the planet. I can imagine how that could occur. I could just imagine it. So that's just as valid theory since we don't know anything else. Most of those ginormous creatures, including a woolly mammoth, as we know, froze with unchewed grass in their mouth.
Yes, and in fact, daisies.
Yes, unchewed daisies, which means daisies don't grow. Dandelions or whatever they were do not grow in the winter. They only grow in the summer. Suddenly there was this instant freeze. They all froze, and that was the end of them. Mm-hmm. So, it's quite possible that there was some kind of cataclysm, and once again, Meki and I are proponents of that. I'm not saying we have all the proof, but you can say it stands up as good as the rest.
Yes.
Meki. Now
the Mpemba
effect. Now, what is that? Do you know what? It's the effect that boiling water can, under certain circumstances, not only freeze but do so quicker than cold water. This phenomenon has been reported as working as far back as ancient Greece. That would have been pretty cool. They didn't have refrigerators. Even though it would seem contradictory to the laws of thermodynamics, which I understand, and water has a heat coefficient of 1. In 1969, a scientist named Mpemba did experiments that proved that the effect is real. However, scientists are left with more questions than answers. Many solutions have been suggested and reasons for the phenomenon, but none have been agreed upon by scientists, and most contradictory explanations were obtained by very different experiments with different controls. Perhaps someday, after more study, scientists will understand this, but currently the results are inconclusive at best. That's crazy talk, Meki.
I know. Two thoughts here, guys. Number one, and this is still staying within this framework of reality. You know that water actually expands as it freezes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with that concept. If it didn't, there'd be no life on this planet. So that's fortunate for us, I guess, because obviously the aquatic life could survive winters, at the bottom of the water, whatever lake, ocean.
Can I explain why? Because even though the temperature in some locations at the bottom of the ocean is below freezing, it can't freeze because of the pressure. And water under pressure can't freeze. And so if it did happen to make a giant ice block, it would immediately run to the top surface of the water, being lighter than the rest, having displaced more than its mass.
Exactly. Now that's interesting in itself, because every other substance known to man actually contracts as it cools.
True.
Okay, there's no other substance except for water, all right, that actually expands as it freezes. Mm-hmm. Now, secondly, and this is shiny side out, tinfoil hats on.
I got my hat on.
I know you do. Okay, this could just be one of the other incongruent or inconsistencies that we have in this framework of reality, because it is not actually reality. Okay, we are left with a whole bunch of, in fact, the next one we'll talk about that as well. We're left with a whole bunch of things that don't make any sense whatsoever. They seem to have been shoehorned into reality because we need water to be exactly the way it is. Mm-hmm. Okay, water with any other properties would be useless to us. In fact, we would not exist. Okay, so therefore, then let's make water this way. If it were like some kind of faulty gaming program, I would be very happy with that. But just think about this, right? We've spoken about this. We're living in a prison. This is the prison, guys, right here, and a whole bunch of stuff around us. Faulty physics. Holes in space-time. Things are broken all around us. No one is fixing it. And this water, the Mpemba effect, water in itself, though, it's just one of those other things. It doesn't make any sense. Well, it doesn't matter. Shut up. Okay, just hey, you shut up. Anyway, the next one, in fact, is the speed of light.
Oh, I love it.
Now, Now you think speed of light is a constant. Wrong!
You are wrong.
Next. Very
That's
wrong. It's so wrong, right? And in
Mhm.
fact, we'll talk about that in a second. Now, while the studies on the speed of light have not fully disproven the theory that it is the fastest we can go, there's increasing evidence that it might actually not be accurate. Now, this is mainstream science talking here, okay? Some point out that dark energy, once again, our good friend
Oh,
dark
there we
energy,
go.
seems to go at a faster rate than ever as time goes on. Yeah, they've also observed that if the Big Bang theory is correct, Big Bang theory, guys, okay, once again the theory, the universe expanded way quicker than the speed of light. Right, when the cosmos was in its infancy. So the Big Bang and the subsequent expansion happened faster than the speed of light. Okay, some scientists in carefully controlled experiments have managed to clock pulses that actually beat out the speed of light, go faster than the speed of light. While how or why we may be able to go faster than light speed is not yet certain, it seems that we may not be as limited as we previously thought. You know, as this mystery remains unsolved, but science seems to be getting closer to an answer. A few more observations around that, guys. So, first of all, we have managed to freeze light
We did.
in a prism. You should look up the experiment. It's fascinating. Okay, so they've actually stopped it around a black hole, right? Light bends and slows down. In fact, inside a black hole, beyond the event horizon, light cannot escape. What? So the gravitational force is so strong inside a black hole that light cannot escape. The event horizon forms, that's as far as you can see inside the black hole, right? So light, which again, not only that, so light is also a wave and a particle, right? A wave and a particle, right? I don't know if you remember this.
Don't give me
And
quantum.
right? So a photon, right? And electron displays again light and particle, wave and particle properties. So this again, okay. We have competing theories here. We've got again a theory of relativity. We've got the quantum mechanics on the other side. What we don't have is a unified field theory, and there are too many questions and too many variables which we have taken for granted, which simply aren't variables. They're simply not constants. They're variable units of measure. Okay, we have taken it and just running with it. That speed of light is as fast as we can go. In fact, if we go close to the speed of light, we would use more energy than exists in the universe. That's what relativity states. So the closer you get to the speed of light, the more energy you consume. In fact, if you get to the speed of light, you will have consumed all of the energy in the
In
universe.
fact, the entire universe to get to it.
Yep, that's right. That's
I
so.
think the equation's wrong, but that's
Maybe.
my problem. Meki, I'm going to grab that as a segue just to take it from you for a sec. I've got a graphic up and it's pretty cool. They talk about the speed of light being constant in a vacuum at 186,000 miles per second. Yeah.
Yep.
However, that's only in a vacuum because we've found, like you stated before, my esteemed co-host mentioned that we can stop it in a crystal. We can shoot it with another laser and it interferes with it and causes it to freeze.
Mm-hmm.
In water, it's 140,000 miles per second. In glass, it's 124,000 miles per second. And in a diamond, it's only 77,500 miles per second. That's something else. Now, this is without changing the temperature. If you change the temperature of the substrate that it's going through, or the medium that's going through, it actually reduces even further. Okay, so the other thing that happens with light, and this is what I believe to be true, is that the energy that's in light diminishes over time. The light is not perpetual. It has energy and it loses energy over time, though it's very slow because when you travel at the speed of light, what happens to you? Time stops. Yeah, according to the
dilates.
equation.
That's right.
Yeah. For you, it hasn't actually changed, but for the observer, you appear to be going fast, and from their point of view, you appear to be going slow. This is the weird thing about light. I think that it changes, slightly degrades its wavelength over a long time. So the further we look back into our universe, the more redshifting we get. And I believe that Doppler effect is not based that we're at a single point. I believe that, in fact, this is my belief, that in fact that it's actually just getting degraded, and that there's a lot of stuff has happened, And yeah, the older galaxies may look different, but maybe that's what happens to a galaxy after all the other stuff has happened to it. We don't know. We just
exactly.
don't know.
Let me put the final nail into the coffin of the speed of light here, shall we? So we're saying the speed of light is the fastest anything can go in this universe. That's what we're saying here, right? That's essentially the theory. Boom.
The trains do 12 miles an hour, Mickey. That was going to take the air out of your lungs.
You'll suck the air out and you'll just suffocate in the train. I tell you what. Quantum entanglement. Yeah, spooky action at a distance.
Yeah.
We know for a fact that something does travel faster than light. Information is exchanged faster than it because it's instantaneous. Irrespective of where one particle is here, another particle is near Andromeda, whatever, the 1,000 million light years away. And the change that you make to the one particle, according to quantum mechanics, and quantum entanglement specifically, will be instantaneous in the other particle that you're entangled with. Instantaneous! Boom! What are you going to do, right? So something is traveling faster than light. Information is transmitted faster than light. Okay, that's a fact, and I mean, we are just bundles of information ourselves, So if you're traveling, anyway, so not to get too deep into it, but I think the speed of light is not the ceiling we think it is.
I believe that's the case as well. Remember that they thought everything else was the fastest thing you could do until we found something faster. Now we've found that in the quantum world, there's instantaneous. It's beyond our measurement. We can't even see how it works yet. It's like magic. And Einstein wrote about that spooky, what was it, at a distance?
Spooky action at a distance.
Spooky action at a distance, or non-local, as it's now known. So, Meki, out-of-body experiences. Oh, you know what? That's always got me, and I love that astral travelling aspect of it. And this is the thing, I grew up in a house that was welcome to the paranormal, and I think this is a great thing. We know that the FBI did a lot of experimentation on remote viewing, which is an out-of-body experience. And let me start by saying that. But people have been reporting strange experiences when they were close to death, and sometimes at other times as well, when where they felt that their consciousness had left their body. Mm-hmm. Although their body was still alive, one group of researchers sought to test this out-of-body feeling. They used virtual reality and cameras, first touching someone's virtual projected body and their real one, and then just the virtual one. People were convinced that they were being touched even when they were not. So it appears, Meki, through these experiments, that they could prove that you were actually out of your body.
Yeah.
That's something
There
else.
was a recent study done. This is only last month, and I will dig it up. I haven't had the chance. Where they believe that they have conclusively proven that out-of-body experiences are in fact real.
Oh, awesome.
Because there were some, experiments along these lines, but which were impossible to have been achieved simply by imagining or dreaming things, right? No, these were very specific test parameters. Now, I'll dig it up and I'll share it with you guys. But I remember there was definitely a study done very recently that seems to prove out-of-body experiences are real.
You know what? That's great. I really like that. The experiment.
I love those pictures there. Nice.
Yeah. The experiment led them to believe that people's ability to experience things in their body relies greatly on where they believe their body to be visually. Another researcher has sought to understand near-death experiences, studying them at hospital over several years, using various controls. He believes his experiment will be able to prove whether people are experiencing illusions or whether their consciousness is actually leaving the body. While none of this has been proven for certain yet, it would make the religious idea of souls much more believable. And we'll take this to the ad break, Mickey, but I'll tell you, there's been a lot of talk. I know that I've known a lot of people who have seen it. Children under 4 can usually see these entities. Whether they're ghosts or people having outer bodies. I know that we've interviewed someone on the station who also said that they were able to return someone back to their body, and that's fantastic. Whether they should have occurred or not. That's we'll leave that to nature. But I'll tell you that it has to be real. You know, the FBI is spending millions of dollars on it. I'm sure that the medical companies are all across this. You know, maybe there's a place we all go to dream. Maybe there's actually a place.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's us going offline in this world and being in the other place where our game console is, where we can play it.
That's the hypothesis, Dave. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. This is like a walk in the prison yard, yeah, ostensibly. It's where we are unlimited, if you will, right? Where everything makes sense, our consciousness is expanded, and then only to collapse back into this particular reality framework. You know, it's this quantum curve or this quantum reality which we collapse back into for whatever reason, and we seem to be bound to it. So our spirit can roam free for a little while, but then it once again the reality function collapses into just the one out of all the possibilities that exist. And here we are, rising out of the quantum form, looking around, wondering why do we stumble in the dark, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. Do you know, we've always, you know, my family, we've always believed in it. We've always believed in the outer body. And I remember my mother, she had friends in what she called a circle, would come around and they would do various things. And I was maybe just a little too young at that point to understand to any, you know, significance what they were trying to achieve, what they were doing. It wasn't witch-like, it was just experimenting with one's mind and doing this and attempting to talk to past spirits and doing, you know, taking you back to past lives with regression. And these things are really important, I think, to get a hold of. If you can not harness it, but if you can understand that it's there, then I think you've got eyes, you know, or feet into another world. I think it's that old Star Wars thing. You've taken your first steps into a bigger world. You know, Meki, we're just before the break, and I'll say, look, can everyone just use this time during the break to push the donate button for me? Thanks so much. We'll see you.
Please donate, guys.
We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Donate.
I love it.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
There seems to be a technical difficulty with the station ad break that was meant to be played right now. We heard the intro to it, and yet we haven't heard the rest of the commercial breaks. So I think what we'll do, Meki, we'll just drive on.
We'll soldier on, sir.
Yeah, we can do that. And
Let's do that.
just in case, you know, this is just a technical issue, and then suddenly we get the intro back to our show again. Okay, we can do that. Do you know what, Meki? I was going to say, proud as punch to be part of the station. We can still use a station break, right?
Absolutely. we should. Look, guys. The truth is this, right? We are here on Nighthawk's, suffering, if you will. He lets us have this show. We don't, have to pay for this airtime, which is great. We don't get paid either. The station runs entirely on you, on your generosity. If you like the information, if you like the shows, not just ours. There's scores of other great hosts on Revolution Radio, right? So if you can donate, please do. There's no commercial interest here that's being put forward. There are no ads that line the corporation's pockets, as far as I know, right? So why not give some of your hard-earned cash to something that might bring you some value?
We're not being told not to talk about stuff. There's no. We won't be doing a show on GMO food and then go to an ad break with Monsanto.
GMO food is good for you.
Yeah,
yummy.
We're not going to be doing that because this is free radio. This is free information. We're giving you information that mainstream media, in some cases, just won't touch with a barge pole. And there is an extraordinary widening gap between, I would say, stations like this and the mainstream media, and that is that they're under more and more control. The government are honestly scripting all the media releases these days. So doesn't it feel good to listen to something that isn't? I think that's something else.
Absolutely.
Certainly it turned me around when I opened my ears. So what I'd like you to do, Meki, I think that's about as much time as the break would normally go for. And now back to your hosts. Dave and Meki, yes.
So guys, we've given you the spiel around. This is show number 142, by the way, 240 and 100.
Wow.
Which, it's cool. Only 8 shows away from 150, which means we would have been on the air for almost 3 years.
1, 2, and 3 years.
Yeah,
I know. What I want you to do is remember this is commercial-free radio. Hit the donate button. Meki, what was that number that people can listen in at any time they want, as long as you're in the USA? Because if you called internationally, I would suspect it's going to cost a lot of money.
Yep.
In international calling.
So Studio A is 712-432-6958. The number again is 712-432-6958. And Studio B is 716-748-0112. Once again, 716-748-0112.
Awesome. You know what? You can call in that way, especially if you live in the US, because it's exceedingly cheap to do that. Certainly don't do it internationally, and we urge you not to do that if that was the case. Alternately, get an app. We've mentioned a whole bunch of apps. Just look for Freedom Slips or Revolution Radio if you're going to look for an app online in your favorite store. Or you can go to the Shiny Side Out one if you like our show, if you're a fan of the show. But we do implore you, listen to all the other wonderful hosts on the station. It's just fabulous. And thanks very much to Nighthawk for allowing us the airtime. Meki, we're back.
Yes, sir.
We're back from the ad break.
We are back. We are back from the ad. That's crazy. Okay, here we go. Look, next, birds falling from the sky. You may have experienced this yourself. This was in Arkansas a little while ago, in your neck of the woods, guys. A bunch of blackbirds fell. Yeah, I know, right? This is not an isolated or even a lonely event. These things seem to happen more frequently now. Anyway, blackbirds simply fell from the sky. At the time, fireworks were blamed, though this theory was not incredibly well tested. It happened again not that long after, and that time they weren't sure, about the fireworks, to blame fireworks. So they weren't sure what happened there. To make matters yet stranger, in the same state, Arkansas once again, around the same time, thousands of fish mysteriously turned up dead as well. So there are a variety of explanations that have been given, and it's hard to explain why thousands of birds, thousands, would fall dead from the sky, and thousands of fish would suddenly die in the same area around the same time. Okay, of course it could be coincidence, it's still a very odd one, and again, the birds dropping from the sky have happened in the past as well. In fact, lots of strange things have fallen from the sky. If you're a Fortean, Charles Fort, he's collected those things, but we just don't know what happened there. No explanation forthcoming from science.
They mentioned spraying at one point there as well, but then that wasn't consistent with the 2 years running. they also mentioned that suddenly there was some kind of, and once Meki, once they have a term for something, they let it go, right?
Oh, once you've named it, you're good.
That's it. So they said, Arctic vortex.
It's like placebo effect. Yeah.
It was the Arctic vortex that did it. Suddenly froze them all to ice cubes, and they fell from the sky dead.
I need to say something to that,
Go
right?
on.
And this is very, very important. Now, we've had our fair share of debunkers and trolls and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
So the thing is, this is specifically in relation to the Star Child skull, right? People keep pointing to things that they think have explained it. So therefore, they no longer have to think about it. So we go and look at these things they point to, and no, there's no explanation. There's simply a questioning. There's simply a saying of, no, what you tell me I don't really believe. I don't have any evidence to the contrary, but obviously, it can't be so. Obviously, any educated and rational thinking human being
That's what they say.
would agree that there could be no such thing as the Star Child skull. Not saying the skull is of a Star Child or of an alien or whatever, or visitor. All we're saying is there's a skull here that is strange. It displays very strange properties, right? The genetic analysis was very strange. There were a whole bunch of anomalies which we can't explain, and not just that, the other skulls, the Paracas skulls as well. There's a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yes.
So do not say it has been solved and point us to things that don't give us any good explanations. Right? There's no point in doing that because we're not helping anyone. You're not helping anyone. You simply, we've named it. Oh yeah, it's a hoax. Boom. As soon as that comes, it's a hoax. Oh, it's swamp gas. Oh, right, swamp gas. It's low-flying geese. They're going through the swamp gas and they give the illusion of a nearsighted hologram. Now, yeah, that's what happened. So, please,
how's this
if
guy?
you have something,
How's this guy?
if you have something to contribute,
Yeah.
please do. I beg you, okay? But do not waste our time by pointing us to things which do not make us smarter or more informed, but simply say, clearly it's a hoax. But clearly based on what? Well, it has to be, right? Guys,
Meki, any educated person would agree with them.
Yeah. Dave?
What's really funny is they haven't, and they won't.
They haven't. Yeah.
I
And
know.
the thing is, the next thing they say is, shut up! Shut up! In fact, you guys have to do yourself a favor and see this thing on YouTube. It's hilarious. I don't know what to Google for, but it's essentially around conspiracy theories and such.
Shut up. I think it's
And shut up!
conspiracy. Shut up. It's very funny.
Shut up. It is hilarious. Sorry, go ahead. Next, Dave, sir.
No, Meki. I too have had my fair share, and this is coming from a bowler. Also, I've got a good friend that is a nurse as well. I've got two friends that are nurses, and both of them have a very staunch opinion on what should be said in the media, and most of it is around the prevention of hysteria. That's what not the facts, not restricting the facts. That they say, oh no, we don't want to do that. You just don't want to cause hysteria, and I always think that's funny because if you can educate people in a way that doesn't cause hysteria, then haven't you done both jobs at once? But so one was Ebola not being airborne, I should say aerosol transmitted, not airborne, and we've provided enough proof for anyone to come on board with that, and yet the media, the mainstream media, still don't talk about it. In fact, the stuff you see on Ebola now is not even a 5-second clip. They don't even talk about it for 5 seconds for one day. Thousands of people dying. And what do we get in our country? 5 seconds. Or not even that in a whole day. Anyway.
Well, people aren't interested anymore, right? Oh, the news cycle has run its course.
Yeah,
it's old news. Yeah,
what,
people
is that
die.
still going?
Yeah.
Is that still going, Meki, that Ebola thing, is it?
Ebola? What's that? Yeah, maybe it is.
Isn't that
Crazy.
the Fukushima thing? Because that was all finished and wound up and done, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what happened.
That's right. 3.5 years still leaking. Still leaking
Yes,
radiation. And no one's doing
a
anything
catastrophe.
about it. There's still an exclusion zone, Meki, and people are still dying. Yeah, get that.
But it's not news anymore. You see, it's not new. If right?
Yeah.
If there was like a fish with 3 eyes like Blinky, that'd be a news story. Blinky.
Mickey, the next one of the questions we've got is the one that was heard world over, and that was
I know
the space roar. I've got a really interesting graphic, and I can't wait till you comment about it. The scientists were attempting to study early stars, but in 2006 they ran into a problem. They were faced with a mysterious noise that greatly inhibited their study. It just disturbed them. Scientists are left baffled as to what causes this. While sounds cannot travel through space, radio waves can, which is what they believe it is. However, they are baffled as to where or what the radio waves are coming from. Also of note is that this sound is 6 times louder than the sound you'd be expected. And there is no explanation for that either. Scientists have managed to figure out that it is not it's not any radio waves that are currently known of, or any of the early stars themselves, or any dust or particles. Now, I have to say that we just recently landed on that. Well, it's said to be a comet. It's reported as a comet. We landed a little tiny craft the size of, I don't know, a desk or something, yeah? And it rolled off about 100 meters when it landed into a shadow, and its batteries ran out almost instantaneously after uploading a whole bunch of data. And they've got to keep their fingers crossed that once that'll get sun again so it can deploy its panels. It's hilarious. $20 billion or something like this, 10 years of traveling through space to finally get to it, and it rolls into a shadow and it's gone.
Ah, those damn shadows! I told you we cannot trust them!
So unfortunately, we're lost. We're lost with that one. But it's said, Mickey, that is one of the sources of this radio signal.
Right, okay.
And that's the whole reason why you would spend $20 billion to go for 10 years to go and land something on it to see what it was.
It makes sense, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that conspiracy. I've got my tinfoil hat on. Let me just put if you're not sure how to fold one, there's the graphic. Yeah, so put it on. Understand that this is a conspiracy theory, that they're withholding information based on the unaltered photos that's now there's YouTube getting around it on this one. So it's one of those things, Becky, that it's so odd that they would be hearing these sounds, yeah, that it's come up again about this comet. I thought that was something else.
That's interesting. You really said, by the way, I do love the graphic. It's a Tyrannosaurus Rex in a spacesuit riding a rocket. You guys, you have to go to YouTube and check it out, as it's hilarious. The next point here is again, the moon is one of my favorite subjects for various reasons. And we had I think we had a five show cycle on the moon.
Yeah.
Now, in this particular one, the question that we're sharing with you here is around the moon illusion. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it has existed since ancient times, or at least it has been mentioned since ancient times. You know, the days of Aristotle, ancient Greeks, the ancient Chinese, and we can probably assume that it has always existed since the moon has been around, however long that may have been. And the illusion is the following: it seems that the moon is much larger. Okay, the moon appears much larger in the sky, lower in the sky than it is higher in the sky. So the closer it gets to the point of the horizon, the bigger it appears. You must have seen as you drive along, the moon is the size of a watermelon, right? But then higher up in the sky, it's the size of an orange. In the past, people have suggested things such as an atmospheric effect or something physical. But both of those have been debunked, believe it or not. So it's not an atmospheric magnification. Okay, you could argue, it's maybe some kind of lensing effect, or, maybe something like that. But no, that apparently isn't the case. Others have suggested things such as relative size or apparent distance that could explain this illusion, but it still baffles scientists. All right, so maybe it's just a function of our brains, is what I'm putting forward here, or it is something else entirely. And harking back to what I said earlier, this is an imperfect world. It's an imperfect program we're caught in. Okay, imperfect. And Dave has just put up a graphic of the moon illusion with the relative. In fact, if you look at it, it looks like it's 4 times larger.
But have a look at this one now, Mickey. You'll see it change over in a second. And
it's fascinating.
The relative size. I love that one that you brought up, because this is the one that I think even Karl Kruseniski. I've got a couple of his books. He's great. He's actually signed one. He's a a scientist in Australia. He's just great, I have to tell you. He always told it the way it is. And he says that at the moment it appears as though when the moon is next to something that you can scale it to, that's when it appears larger.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be at the horizon. If you're able to scale it with exactly the same object that would either be a fence, a cow, a tree, or something similar that we understand the size and scale of, then it appears larger to our brain. And it seems as though it's an illusion. But once again, it hasn't been proven. This is, once again, it's a theory as to why it happens.
Yeah, and nobody has yet been able to prove or come up with a definitive explanation as to why this is happening.
Well, we know one thing that's fact on this one, Mickey. Now I'm gonna start like a debunker. It's fact, proven fact, but comically, it is fact that the moon is not getting closer just for us for that perspective for that shot. It doesn't vary in its distance, although I'd like to believe that was the case.
If that were the case, we would have massive tsunamis rolling across the earth. I can tell you that. Okay, forget about
effect.
It's you've got the tidal function, of course, happening. But if the moon came any closer, we would have much stronger tidal effects than we have now.
Nice.
It's true.
Oh,
the next one is awesome. The next one is my very favorite, Dave, and I know it's your very favorite as well.
Is this the double slit, Mickey?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I just have to get a good graphic for it. I promise me, I'm working on it. This. Oh. You know what? I had a really, really good graphic of this recently, and it's. I don't know what happened to the best one I've ever seen. It was the best ever, but this one I'll have to do.
In fact, if you don't know what we're talking about, guys, do yourself a favor and get a copy of What the Bleep Do We Know. Don't get the 8-hour extended version, just get the regular cinema version. What the bleep do we know? They illustrated it in a fantastic fashion. But please, Dave, share it with our esteemed listenership.
All right, I'll read what we have and then I'll add to it. Okay, so this is wave-particle duality. People have argued for a long time whether light is a wave or a particle. However, after much study, scientists seem to be coming to the conclusion that things are way more confusing than that. Scientists performed studies which seem to show that a photon it's a single point of light, a photon, can act as a wave and a particle at the same time. However, they've also found studies showing that the photon will choose to be a wave or a particle only when forced to make the decision under controlled conditions. So far, and I'll explain that in a minute, so far scientists have no explanation for this, why it works, and are still trying to understand it. Some have even called it the one true mystery of quantum mechanics. Now, the double slit is really well explained. It's very simple. If you had an equivalent of a paintball gun, which fires small pellets out of it, they did this with an old CRT tube. Don't do this at home. And they fired it through a single slit. You can imagine, at a distance from you, on the screen behind that slit, you would imagine a single line vertically matching the slit, and some things would, you would paint the wall behind that slit. But what happened was, when they put two on there, they thought they would just get two painted slits there. They didn't. They got what is shown in this graphic as an interference pattern. Now, that didn't make sense, because why would that happen? You would imagine that you would get a propagation wave coming out through both of them, right? Which is how an interference pattern happens, and that they would get cancellations. And I'm going to move the mouse; you'll see it. You get a cancellation here, a doubling of the waveform there, cancellation again because the two wave peak and trough would cancel each other out, and so on. And you get these scatter graphs behind it, but the scatter graphs are in bars, and the bars reflect the shape of the slit, yeah? Easy. Until they decided to put on, say, let's just, for argument's sake, on the right-hand side slit, they put a little device that, because they were curious to see which slot the little photon flew through. It was actually an electron. Little electron flew through to discover which one it went through, so they could see where it landed on the wall behind it. As soon as they put a mechanism on to record it, it decided then only to go through the other slit and turn up as a wave, not a particle. Sorry, as a particle, not a wave. There's a single slot band on the rear. And I thought, well, maybe the mechanism itself is causing an interruption to this. So what we'll do, we'll unplug it. As soon as they unplugged it, it went back to this thing we see now. And I thought, well, what we'll do, we'll plug it back in, but we won't take any measurements. And when they weren't taking measurements, it remained like this, like you can see it as an interference pattern from a waveform. And when they started taking measurements, it decided to go back to just being two bands on the rear screen. It decided this, and this is what has done the head in of anyone who's trying to explain how the double slit experiment works.
And let's be clear, it happens every time it's observed. It's not just, once in a while it changes. Every time the observation or the non-observation happens, the results are the same.
It's almost like it decides to do it, like this description says. It makes the choice to do it so it can be anonymous. Or there's a programmer somewhere looking down in a video game going, oh, this'll get them. You watch this. As soon as they unplug it, I'll turn it back on again. You watch. And then we all laughed, Meki. Yes, we all laughed in the control room.
We laughed and we had a jolly good time.
Yeah.
Look at the hellish monkeys.
All right, so it's been stated before, and I'm not the first to say it, but if you know why this works, if you know why this happens, there's a Nobel Prize in it for you. If you can explain it. Good luck
it will
with
lead
that.
to an entire different, I believe, once we figure it out, right? It'll, unless it, of course, it proves our theory about the hypothesis. It'll open up a whole new world of scientific and industrial endeavor. Because if you can actually understand and control this, you will have understood and controlled one of the mysteries of life. And there's always a good bug in it. So I'm sure, some of you enterprising fellas and gals, you can figure it out. Because this is a mystery that blows me away.
Meki, quantum physics is the same as suddenly discovering we're actually in a hologram.
Yeah, I know.
That's what it's like. It's like you found a little corner down at the side of the room. You saw a bit of light coming through. You go, that's really weird. There's no lights down there. And when you peered through, there was a whole new universe on the other side. That's sort of what this feels like when you delve into quantum.
Because it is so removed, divorced, I want to say, from our perceived reality. A lot of the quantum mechanical properties or the quantum physical properties that you encounter as you read up on it and the experiments that have been done are entirely counterintuitive to what we would expect. Right?
None of the properties of the quantum world match the physical world that we live in.
No.
However,
and that's
they're at the basis of everything that happens.
Yeah, that's right. Now, there's a problem with that when we spoke about it when it came to the brain as a quantum minefield. Scientists believe that the quantum states would decohere too quickly for it to have an effect on the physical world. Well, the quantum world is underlying our perceived reality, and it's only a matter of scale. We happen to be the size we are. God knows why, right? But we are. That's us here. But in reality, it's irrelevant. I mean, these scalable, ratios that we all move in are entirely arbitrary. The human form is not the yardstick for everything, okay? And our lifespan is not. So we need to walk away from that. But still, yet we see that the observable universe for us is never going to be reconciled under current understanding with quantum mechanics. It's just fascinating. Which brings me to the next point. We spoke about this before. We just added it again because it bears thinking about it again. We actually expanded a little on last week, and this is about the origin of life. Last week we already shared that with you guys, Now, the origin of life and the creation of our universe obviously have been the subject of incredible debate over the course of time. Okay, the why and how and what for and so forth, are a mainstay of our philosophers. Some scientists explain the creation of the universe by the model of the Big Bang. Again, it's only theory, guys, okay? Others believe it's a circular universe. Others believe it never ends. Others believe different things. Others believe we're actually the dream of Brahma. Hey, maybe we are. Now, most of us have learned about the Big Bang in school, of course. And much study has also been done on the subject of abiogenesis. Abiogenesis, okay? And what is that? Now, that is the ability of life to come from matter that is inorganic. The only way for life to be created without prior life. Makes sense, right? So you got a rock, and all of a sudden you got a flower. Boom, that's abiogenesis.
I've got a graphic for that up at the moment.
Beautiful. Now I'm simplifying here. So we have not quite figured out how we went from inorganic to organic matter, right? We haven't figured it out. Now,
they haven't replicated it in a lab yet.
Correct, and that's really the important thing here. In fact, there are a lot of things they haven't replicated. Now, despite an incredible amount of scientific study, obviously we've studied this in some depth, right? None of this has up to this point been proven. Even though scientists at the Large Hadron Collider are working on discovering the Higgs boson, which many believe would bring physicists closer to proving the Big Bang and other parts of the universe's origin theories. However, it is important to note that discovering the Higgs boson is not the be-all and end-all. It would simply open up new ground in the study of physics, but it would not definitively prove the Big Bang. Okay. Furthermore, many who believe in the theory of intelligent creation would say that even if the Big Bang were proven, it does not necessarily mean that a God of some sort is not involved. A God could have created the universe and set it in motion through means that could be observed by science. Okay, this is really, I'm going to share a little story with you in a second. Those who propose this theory bring up Thomas Aquinas. You might know the saint Thomas Aquinas, familiar with him? He had a famous argument in regards to an unmoved mover. That there had to be some sort of first cause to the events that created the universe. The universe is huge and expansive, and the origin of life, may never be fully understood. But think about this unmoved mover. Now, our brain can't really comprehend something coming out of nothing. We always, we are always going into infinite regression. What would happen? How far can we reduce? How far can we split the atom? How much further than a quark can we go? Is there anything beyond strings? So what is actually at the final analysis of all of this? Is there a little room with a guy with a beard, pulling a couple of levers and pushing buttons, or not? So it's really interesting. Now, to come to the story I was going to share to you, I was on the train. I might have mentioned this before. On the train, going to work at the time, I think, and I was talking I was actually overhearing a discussion some born-again Christians were having with some university students, and the university students said, well, okay, fair enough, so you say the earth was created 4004 BC, blah, 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 I get it, but how do you explain, the dinosaur fossils, or even geological dating and all these wonderful things, radiocarbon dating, da-da-da. Now, well, we all know the issues with it, with all of these scientific discoveries. The answer that the born-again Christian provided was elegant in its simplicity and precluded any further discussion. And this is what he said. He said, well, the dinosaurs and the fossilized bones and the radiocarbon dating, well, yeah, God made it like that. He created the bones millions of years old. And at that point, you really, okay, well, I can't argue with you any longer because you've trumped me, right? We should be very careful that we don't just give arguments that remain unprovable. One of the human endeavors that we have to undertake consistently and constantly is the quest for new knowledge. Okay, we need to question and find out what makes things work and how do things tick. All right, simply assuming, that it was made that way. Okay, well, but then let me ask you this question, right? Where did God come from? All right. The unmoved mover, is this the prime being? There's nothing beyond that. It is just a very difficult concept, and for tens of thousands of years, people have struggled with this particular line of thinking, because you could almost go insane, right? If you think about it too much, because there's no definitive answer. There's no you can't achieve finality, even if you think you can. Because obviously Richard Dawkins thinks he's right, and then you've got the creationists on the other side. They think they're right.
Mm-hmm.
But Dave and us and me, maybe most of you standing somewhere in the middle, thinking, scratching our head. Well, I don't know. Come on, man! I just give me something I can work with here. But yeah, it's fascinating stuff, guys. It really is.
It sure is, and every time I was given, it's so funny that that's what the person answered, but I find the conversation should have no end. Like, there is no beginning. Like,
yep.
I don't think until, if it's circular, I don't think we'll find out till we get to the middle bit again, unless we are in the middle bit. I don't know. I just don't know where we're at. There's a lot of explanations, and I don't think any are conclusive. We're still sitting on a rock amongst it all, until we're able to go laterally to it, or understand it deeply, or meet the ancients. Surely there's an more ancient society than us that we could talk to and go, hey, what's the go with the universe? Wouldn't that be great?
That'd be awesome.
I just see that as being something that'd be awesome, yeah. So, what's this, Meki? The Moai statues of? Oh yes, you know what? I saw a whole documentary this week on Easter Island. And did you know it's stated that it was as little as only 700 AD that Easter Island has now been said to be populated. You know what? I do have a problem with that. We know that they did DNA testing on the people and found them to be Polynesians, people who are currently living there, Meki.
Yep.
They found also that not only the inhabitants, but let me put a graphic up, there we go. Not only the inhabitants, but even New Zealand was 700 AD. The Polynesians started to go everywhere around about 700 AD.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the same Polynesians, I have to state, in all of the other places they lived, none built heads. None of them built the Easter Island heads as we know them today. None.
That's right.
Yep. And so this is once again one of those things. And if you're Egyptian, don't hate me. But I'm not sure the Egyptians built the pyramids. I'm not sure.
Sure they didn't, mate.
Yeah. This as to that, as that is to this. And I don't think the Polynesians built these stone figurines, the giant figurines that not only are just in some cases only torso, but full-bodied. Yeah. So some of them sit on a small thing as a graphic shows here. So the mystery, I'll read the copy now. The mystery of Easter Island and the Moai statues that inhabit it is something that most of us agree are at least vaguely familiar with. But the fact that there are still so many legitimate unanswered questions surrounding the islands in itself are quite remarkable. Where did the people go? Meki, some of the people there say that they came from Peru.
Mm-hmm.
And they were beaten down by DNA saying, no, the people here are Polynesian, because they have a Polynesian marker. There's a twin marker for them. Back in Easter in 1722, a Dutch explorer happened upon something strange. He was originally in search of the hypothetical landmass called Terra Australis. It was a bit too east, though, to exist, because at the time they thought that the northern and southern hemispheres should be balanced. Of course, that's mistaken. Did you know, Meki, to call it out of balance is if you had a billiard ball in your hand, the Earth would be a higher polished surface than the billiard ball, a flatter surface than a billiard ball with a higher polish.
Really?
Yeah. At the size of a billiard ball, the Earth has a better consistency of flatness than glass.
Wow.
Even with all of its undulations, hills, and all the mountains and everything, they become nothing at that size. It's such an extraordinary comparison. Instead, though, he discovered an island in the southeastern Pacific Ocean, which he would later name Easter Island due to the date of its discovery. He was surprised to discover that the island was inhabited, and he reported seeing between 2,000 and 3,000 people there. This was surprising because the island, well, was really far from anything else at all. It's in fact, it's today we know it as the most remote island in the world. In the world. A staggering 1,900 kilometres away from the nearest inhabited island and about 3,500 kilometres off the coast of Chile. And yet, despite its incredible remoteness, the Rapa Nui people, who called the island home, managed to carve and transport, this is what I don't believe, a mind-blowing 887 statues, some measuring 33 feet tall and weighing, they're the ones who are the full length, and weighing up to 82 tons. An average of 17 kilometres each. 17. You know what, Mecki, if you told me, if you were my boss and you said, look, we live on an island and there's no statues, but I've got this vision, we're going to make statues, it's going to be awesome. And I go, well, that's cool. What are we going to make? Mud statues? No. We're going to go. We're going to see the mountains 17 kilometers ago. Yeah. Well, we're going to carve statues and we're going to drag them down here. I go, you go for that. Where's the boats? Remember how we had boats? I'm out of here.
Are there any stairs?
Just one. Nuts to you. All right. So I'm perpetually flabbergasted by the mainstream science in that they classify this as being perpetuated by or made by the Polynesians. I'm not saying the Polynesians aren't skilled, because I don't want people knocking my door. I don't want a whole bunch of Polynesians knocking on my door saying that it's not true, what I'm saying. All I'm saying is I'm not sure that the timeline is correct. And it could very well have been 12,500 years ago. Remember, Mecki, we did the dating show? You can't date.
Yep.
You cut stone.
Nope.
Apparently they all died because there was some horrid famine. Yeah? And that's awful. Truly terrible. And all this happened roughly 700 years ago. The biggest remaining question marks concerning the statues themselves is definitely their transportation. I saw one esteemed university professor stating that they would have transported them whilst they remained in a vertical position. What? That's crazy talk. Mecki, where's your tinfoil hat?
I got it on my head firmly fastened in my reality suspension module.
Because that's the most unstable way of carrying something that is literally top heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you? Why? It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. In fact, they did trials of it, and it took like 30 people, and they had wooden, rollers. They tried rollers. They tried the skid rafts. They tried everything to drag them down, and that was actually pretty successful. They were able to right them and do a whole bunch of stuff with that. But it took 30 people, and it took them years, they estimated, to be able to carve one of those out with only stone chisels.
Mm-hmm.
Not metallic ones, and to do it they would have had to have language. You know all of the infrastructure behind making something like this. Not least to say that it's the only stone structure in the entire civilization of the Polynesians where they did this. Plus, the stonework at the bottom of this graphic is awesome. You can see what they've done. They've got a straight line there. It's got a flat face on it. They also had eye insets, which reflected the sun. And did you know what those eye inlets, the material they used, was also highly reflective in a UV.
Oh, really?
So they were adorned with hats and a whole bunch of things. Let's go over to Confederate Treasury.
Very good. Another mystery, which is probably closer to the American heart than anyone else's, but it's nonetheless an interesting question. Now, this is the Confederate Treasury. The year was 1865, and the American Civil War was drawing to a close, right? Now, as the Union marched the final path to victory, the Confederate Secretary of the Treasury, George Trenholm, made one last effort to preserve the South's asset. He liquidated them. While a veritable fortune in gold, silver, and jewels had been carried by President Jefferson Davis and his men when they abandoned Richmond, Virginia, when they were captured, it was all gone. Right, so they carried it, but it was all gone when they were captured. All of it, save a few Confederate banknotes. Yeah, good luck with that. And the most improbable part of all was the staggering 4,000 kilograms, that's 4 tons of Mexican silver dollars, that simply seemed to have vanished. Dozens of theories have been proposed to explain the mystery behind the missing treasure. Some maintain that the gold was distributed among the plantation owners and buried, waiting for a day when the South will rise again. I'm sorry. Many believe that the silver was buried in Danville, Virginia, where it still lies buried today. Others have claimed that the funds were entrusted with a secret society called the Knights of the Golden Circle, so that it could finance a second civil war in the future. The South will rise again! But the truth is, the real fate of the Confederate Treasury remains a mystery to this day. There are other treasures, of course. You know, the Knights Templar treasure, yeah, the treasure of the Temple of Solomon. And many, many other treasures that we know have existed, yet can no longer be found. Personally, I believe a whole bunch of them are in the Vatican Library vaults. That's where they are. They're hiding under the Vatican. That's just me, though.
Do you know, to all of the people listening to this from the southern states of the US, it's a good thing. We're really pleased with everything you're able to achieve. And don't let us hold you back, man. It's all good. All right? Yes, that'll do.
You've fooled them now. We're safe, Dave.
Oh boy. Phew. I'm sweating. Okay. Every so often, this is Göbekli Tepe. Every so often, a discovery happens that forces us to reimagine what we think we know about humanity and how we got to where we are today. Turkey's Göbekli Tepe is certainly one such discovery. The site, located at the top of a mountain ridge, is composed of more than 200 pillars, up to 20 feet in height and weighing up to 20 tons, arranged in roughly 20 circles. Many of the pillars have predatory animals engraved on them, and none of this would be surprising if it was built in, say, 2000 BC, Meki. But Göbekli Tepe was built more than 13,000 years ago. Let me say it again, 13,000 years ago.
Yes,
predating Stonehenge by more than 8,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's saying something.
Yes,
Its
sir.
existence completely upends the conventional view of the rise of civilization, because it would have taken a civilization to build this thing. The idea of a religious monument built by hunter-gatherers flies in the face of our knowledge about both religious monuments and hunter-gatherers. Look, it's even got circles within circles, making this graphic that I've got up there.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is a great fort, if you know what I'm saying, because you're filtering the people who have to come in a particular direction. It's an extraordinary place, and the guys from Ancient Aliens talk about it. You know what? Prior to the discovery of this site, we believed that the people of that time lacked complex symbolic systems, social hierarchies, and the division of labor. Three prerequisites we thought, for building a 22-acre massive temple. Formal religion, meanwhile, is supposed to have appeared only after agriculture produced such hierarchical social relations. The findings at Göbekli Tepe, however, suggest that we might just have the story backwards. Perhaps it was the need to build a sacred site that first fueled hunter-gatherers in their quest to organize themselves as a workforce, to settle down in one place, to secure stable food supply, and to eventually invent agriculture. But the existence of the site raises far more questions than it answers, and I don't believe they're answers at all. How did nomadic Neolithic man manage to organize a workforce to complete this site? Why was it built? How come it predates similar structures by thousands of years? Excavation started on the site in 1996, and most of it still remains unearthed. But for now, these questions must go unanswered. You know, Menke, one of those questions that you've got is, it seems to have been purposefully buried.
Yes, exactly. Now, look at the time frame, 13,000 years ago. There's a whole bunch of things that line up 13,000 years ago, right? The potential building of the Sphinx, right? So the Sphinx was built around that time because guess what? There was never the head of a person on it because it's completely out of proportion with the rest of the body. Okay? I'm sorry, I'm getting very upset here.
No, you're being passionate, Menke, and it was a lion's head, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a lion's head. The Sphinx, okay, every replica of the Sphinx, even the Egyptians themselves that created the replicas of the Sphinx, made it anatomically correct in proportion, you know, the body in proportion to the head. In reality, that's not the case. It's a tiny little head. It's a tiny little head on a gigantic lion's body. It's recarved, guys, okay? I mean, if you don't believe that, then, you know, maybe you should stay buried under the sand. But you have to ask yourself, at this time, why was it buried? Deliberately, to protect it, maybe? And another thing is this. We haven't dug up the entire Earth. In fact, sites that would have existed 13,000 years ago, or longer even, would have been along the coastlines of that time, because that's where we naturally settle. We settle along rivers or coastline because it makes transport a lot easier, right? Trade a lot easier. And we can fish. We can both fish and farm. We can do a whole bunch of stuff near the water. So I'm not surprised because the water lines have changed. Okay, the water has receded or come inland. You know, it has washed away the ancient cities, and we say, oh, where's the other stuff? How come it predates Stonehenge by 8,000 years? Well, we are a lot older. We've been around for a lot longer than we are led to believe. Okay, both in the old world and the new. Okay, it is simply a question of finding all the evidence. We haven't yet, and even. If, in fact, I guarantee you the evidence that is the most controversial, all right, that has been unearthed, you have not heard of. It hasn't been shared with us. I guarantee it. You think the Iraqi war was just about oil? Think again.
Completely. Menke, the creatures that were found on the side of this are petroglyphs, and they are some extraordinary carvings. It looked as though they had access to crocodiles. Yep. Because there's crocodiles. There are, looks like hyenas and all different kinds of creatures. But one thing that is extraordinary, which I'm trying desperately to find right now, and that is that the people of Easter Island have their hands by their sides with their fingers shown, and so do the people that are drawn on the Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah,
site.
That's right.
And
that's
it's also a belt buckle.
Yes.
And one of our esteemed listeners, who knows who he is, he's awesome. He mentioned that I think it's got an H on it, like the H blocks of Pumapunku. Yes.
In fact, you look at the carvings, especially of the things that are up now. They're reminiscent of the Pumapunka carvings as well.
They are.
You look at those.
Remember this. Remember that most of these sites that we're finding now, I mean now, not in the last 30 years, but the ones we're finding now, like Pumapunku, destroyed.
Yep.
Inexplicably destroyed. We don't even know why. There's no true form of the way it was put together. This looks like it was buried. Imagine, and we're seeing evidence all ways. And what's that huge stone, Mickey? The one that lies on its side that's still in the quarry.
You mean at Baalbek?
Yeah, Baalbek stone, yeah? So there looks to be of around the world at the very same time an apparent tools down, gentlemen.
Yes.
All around the world at approximately the same time, between 12 and 13,000 years ago.
Yeah. And we have the mythological evidence backing that up as well with the flood legends from around the world. Okay.
Exactly.
So some event came about that people knew about in advance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Not all. And I mean, let me just run one thing quickly by you. Right now on this planet, we have high civilization and high technology existing with very primitive modes of existence. So you still have some fairly, well, we call them primitive people in South America, Africa, even Aborigines here in Australia to some extent. In Papua New Guinea, in fact, as well, that live like they would have lived 5, 10, 15,000 years ago. At the same time, you have people like ourselves that talk over the internet, use computers and fly through the air, and now contemplating space tourism. There's no reason why this couldn't have been duplicated in the past, right? You've got different levels of development. You've got different levels of understanding and technology, and maybe it was an economic function. I don't know. The point is that different peoples would have survived differently, and I guarantee you that if there was a cataclysmic event, the highly civilized people that are used to machines and air conditioning and whatever would have had a harder time surviving than the people that lived more primitively.
Exactly. We'll all
Okay,
be primitives afterwards.
Well, that's a fact,
Yeah.
and starting to eat each other. So, so that's one side of the argument, because maybe some of the highly developed ones, and this is one part of the hypothesis once again, managed to survive elsewhere, or underground, or on the moon, or whatever, right? So let's not dismiss any of that. This is fascinating stuff,
With,
by the way.
with Hitler in the Antarctic base, Mickey.
Yes, exactly. And what is in the what's happening there, guys? I mean, why can't we? Let's go there. Let's have a look, right? I mean, of course, it's a big continent, it's as big as Australia, but something is going on there. We have had Operation High Jump. We had some anecdotal evidence here, right? Again, nothing concrete we can put our finger on, but we know that the Nazis operated there. We want to quickly, I think we can quickly do these sea peoples,
Yeah,
and then we're
absolutely.
probably out of time. So this is a mystery around the sea peoples. Again, it's not quite as far back as all that, but it's certainly a mystery. During the late Bronze Age, civilization was progressing at an impressive rate in the Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean regions. That's in Europe back there. Kingdoms rose, order was established, and technology was advanced as well. The Mycenaean and Minoans had intricate palaces in Greece and Crete. The Hittites dominated what is now Turkey, Asia Minor. And the Canaanites controlled what would become the Holy Land, Israel, Lebanon, and Jordan. But in the years surrounding 1200 BC, all of this would change. Over the course of a single generation, right, 20, 30 years, all of those civilizations would be almost entirely wiped off the map. And those that did survive would be set back by 1,000 years, losing the ability to write and turning back the clock on the sophistication of their art, architecture, and pottery in the 100 years to follow. The event was part of what is known as the Bronze Age collapse, and it remains one of the largest dark spots in historians' records. And one of the causes of this bizarre collapse was the mysterious Sea Peoples, a technologically inferior, unaffiliated group of seafaring warriors who raided the lands and are often credited with the collapse of these once great civilizations. The problem is, historians still have little, if any, idea of who these warriors who these warriors were and where they came from, and more so, what became of them after they conquered and finally stopped their conquest in Egypt. Also unknown is how the Sea Peoples managed to conquer civilizations hundreds of years more advanced in weaponry. But without solid records from the time, and with only scattered details of the origins of these strange raiders, we may never know their true identity. I mean, this is one of the more recent examples of a mysterious collapse of civilization, right? Which may have been caused by invading barbarians. But again, who were these folk? Where they come from?
Mickey, what's extraordinary is that we had written records then.
Yes,
And we
absolutely.
still don't know.
No, that's the thing. It's just it's a complete baffling mystery, right? I mean, who knows? They might have come out of America. They might have come out of Africa. Anything is possible, right? We just don't know. And they made short work of the dominant civilizations at the time.
But all it tells me, to be honest, is that the dominant civilization will have its time.
Yes.
It always only lives for a short time, for whatever mistakes it makes, and history will, praise it for its good times and bad times, and yet, we wave goodbye to England, then the US. We know Romans, the Greeks, each one of them, has had their time. The US, is currently there. We're seeing a shift during our lifetime.
Ooh, that's the music.
That's
Sorry,
it.
guys.
That's all good.
That's it for today.
Yep. And we'll see you for another Shiny Side Out next week. Take care, everyone. Thanks for listening. Oh, and don't skip those ads.